Okay, this is the next episode of All Apologies, Guilt, and Blame. I, All Apologies, Guilt, and Blame is the third book in my series, Life Beyond Silence. It's also the third podcast. My first book, Not a Victim, a Survivor, Life Beyond Domestic Violence and Rape, can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, a bunch of others. And then I have the second book, Losing Touch with Reality, and it soon will be on Amazon along with All Apologies. I just never seem to have the time to do stuff. I mean, I'm sure everybody else is the same way. It's just like you never have the time to really do the things you want to do. The reason I did the podcast in the first place, as most of you all know if you've been listening to me, is I just wanted a different avenue, one that I could talk to my listeners, that they could comment, they could ask questions. I realize that my life, I've realized it for a long time, but I've realized that my life has so many mistakes, so many wrongdoings on my part, and I take full responsibility and blame and guilt for all of that. Ever since I was young, I was a rebellious teen. I've been through multiple marriages. I've had multiple kids. I've not been the best mom. So on and so forth. I've lived a crazy life. Truly I have. And some of what you'll learn in this book, I didn't even write in the others. It just didn't seem, I guess it didn't seem normal, especially when I was talking about my life being twisted, which it has been. But I want desperately to let people know that are going through trauma for whatever reason that they're not alone. That other people go through it. I've been through it. And there's so many things I wish I could take back. So much of my life. And no matter if you're addicted, you're an alcoholic, which is addiction too, but no matter if you've been raped or you've been through domestic violence or whatever you've been through, I would just hope that in the end, you're like me. You kind of just let it go and find peace wherever you can. There's just so many things I could take back and would take back in an instant. I was raped when I was a teen. I was technically raped by my abuser, but I never really looked at it that way. It was just another form of abuse that he took out on me to try to, I don't know, have power in that last instance. And then I was raped at a military base. And I couldn't describe it if I wanted to. I mean, I tried in the podcast. I also tried in the book, but it was just one of those things where wrong place, wrong time. Shouldn't have been in a car with somebody I didn't know. And I took the blame for that. I knew I'd never be able to identify him. I knew I'd never be able to really make anybody understand. And I just buried it, along with so many other things that I've been through. Anyway, let's get back into the book, All Apologies, Guilt and Blame. Where I left off was my biggest, I think, in my entire life, mistake. It ultimately cost me my daughter. And I mean, she's like a shining star in my life. I follow her life. I get pictures. I should say I save pictures that I can get of her and my granddaughter. And I try to keep up with her life from afar. When my grandchild was born, I messaged her in an attempt to make contact and just say, I love you, I'm proud of you. You have a little girl like I did. And she quickly put me in my place and told me I should never contact her again or she would seek legal ramifications. And I didn't try to contact her again because I knew she could, and I knew that it wasn't her fault for hating me. It was my fault. And I knew my mother also had a hand in it, along with everybody else, but especially my mother. She could have told her that I still loved her and I was still her mother no matter what, and that she should talk to me, that I was older, that I was more stable, and I just wanted a small piece. I just wanted contact in some way, and she could define that contact, but that's not what happened. I'm pretty sure that if my daughter mentioned it to my mother, that my mother said, no, she doesn't deserve it. I agree with you. She left you, and she doesn't deserve it. I've told you how selfish she is. I've told you how irresponsible she is. You know, if you don't want to be around that, then don't. Whatever she said. But I think the ground was laid a long time ago. when I left. I think that my daughter talked to my mom, or my mom talked to my daughter, and I think it was just said over and over to her that I was not worthy. You know, my sister, all these years later, decades later, she'll apologize and say she wishes she hadn't had a hand in it. And I always tell her it's okay. You know, I get it. She was younger. She was also leading her life and following along with my mother. And I get it. I know what I did. And I know that it wasn't what I should have done. And that my mother twisted it up in my daughter's head. Because, yeah, I did the wrong thing. And she could have said that. But she didn't have to tell her all these years over and over again never to have anything to do with me. My mother has called me and talked to me and been around and been my mother. But she took my daughter from me. And she didn't tell her that she could forgive me, that I deserved forgiveness, that I had gone without her for so many years, and I was sorry for that. And you can't tell me my mother doesn't know that I'm sorry, because I seem to say it all the time. I've literally eaten my heart and soul out over the years. I have this wonderful daughter and 3 other kids that I do see, that I do have contact with. And I have this wonderful older daughter who has given up on me. And who I'll probably never speak to before I die. Which is really hard. You can't even imagine how hard. You know, her dad, I said it in this podcast, that her dad finally died of cancer. It's been a good while ago, but, and I don't know right off the hand, or off my top of my head rather, I don't know what year it was, but he, after all those years of revengeful torment that he did with me, you know, he had finally, I guess, won that she grew up and she had a child and got married. And when, I don't know if she knew when she first saw him or if it was just a visit to let him meet his granddaughter, but when he got cancer, she was around him. Maybe not like a bunch of times, but I've got pictures of some of the times that he got to see my granddaughter and that he got to see my daughter, his grandchild too. But she came around him, even though the story goes that she didn't have the best life with him. I've been told a million times over that's part of the wrongdoing that I did, was leaving her in his hands, basically, because he wasn't a good parent. He was an alcoholic. His new wife had given her a bunch of chores, and they kept her in a cold room. She was kind of basically, or at least it was portrayed that way to me by my mother, which is the only contact I had, that she was basically living a life of Cinderella. She was kept in a room, in an upstairs room that had no heat. She was made to wash her own clothes and do her own chores. I don't know what all that was. But yeah, he wasn't the Disneyland dad that he had always said he was. And I get that. I was hoping he wouldn't be, but I knew he was an alcoholic, and even though I knew that he had remarried, I was hoping that he wouldn't be a terrible dad. But he was. Or at least, like I said, that was what I was told, that he was a terrible dad. But he did all these things to her, and she ended up leaving and moving in with my mother. And I don't think it was too awfully long after I left. But when she did, I know she did have a good life. And I know that she may have ended up where she is in life because of me leaving. Because if she had stayed with me, I don't know that she would have ended up in the same field, in the same career, in the same life. I don't know. I would hope so, but I don't know. But I do know she forgave him, at least enough that she saw him and let him see his grandchild. And I don't know what to say. Like I said, I take blame for what I did. But I've said it before, and I guess I'll say it again. I don't get it. I'm not the worst mom. I wasn't a good mom. I get that. I made mistakes. I did a lot of things I'm sorry for. And I wish I could take back. But I'm not an evil person. I don't have anything anymore. Nothing. I have a little dog, and I live a quiet life. I am not in the best of health. I had a heart attack last year that I lived through, that I wished in many ways I hadn't. I'm at peace in knowing that I can't undo the wrongs I did. I just have to continue to swallow the pain. I really hurt for so many years. I've really hurt. But I have 3 children that I do see, and 4 grandbabies that I get to see. I do talk to my kids, my grandbabies. I do get pictures, and I do understand. In my family's eyes, my oldest doesn't have to forgive me, and I get that. I did something that I'm sure a lot of listeners and people that have read my books, I'm sure a lot of people are like, you shouldn't have given up your kid. And I get that. But I wasn't all together back then. And I'm not saying I'm all together now. I'm not saying that somebody has to forgive me. I've accepted that although there's many people in this world that are forgiven, it's not meant for me. And if anything, after I'm gone, I'm sure I'll still be the black sheep of the family, and nobody will think of me in a good way. I'm sure my other 3 kids will miss me in some way, but they'll be okay. They've all told me they'll be okay. Which is I guess that's the circle of life, right? But I think all of us would like to think that we don't get told before we die that we won't be missed, or we'll only be missed a little bit. You know, over the years, I've had my family tell me they didn't want an old person around, that they were too busy to come see me, that I'm not gonna, like when I had my heart attack, you're not gonna die. It's gonna be okay. By the way, do you have a will? Do you have things labeled
of who you want them to go to. What do you want us to do with the body? All those questions I guess other people get asked too, but even though all those years of trying to find love, I realized finally that maybe that's just not out there for some people. No white picket fence and no grandma fixing cookies for me. But, you know, I just take everything in stride now. There's nothing anybody can say to me that it hurts when they say whatever. But I've accepted so much pain over the years that now I just like, it's okay. And I make jokes about it. One of my daughters told me that they realized a long time ago that I wasn't the best mom and I had made some terrible choices. But that things are different and they've accepted me for the person that I am. I don't know how it was worded. I know all of my kids in some way have said the same thing, except for the oldest. But I know my son and my other two daughters, they've all said basically something similar in the fact that they remember the bad times, but they've accepted that that's just what happened. And I won't say they forgave me, but they realized that that's not me now. And it's okay. They just prefer to move on, you know, put it behind them. And I always make comments like, I mean, I get it. I wasn't a great mom. I tried. I really did. But I get it. I wasn't. But they all are great people. All of my kids are great people and great members of society. They all have careers. They all are doing fine. My son is the youngest of all of them, and he's moving along in his life. I still worry about him. I worry about all of them, but mostly about him. But um, I get it. And I just tell him I appreciate that they still love me, or still call me mom, or still have anything to do with me. And that I get to see my grandkids. And I just still hope and pray someday that my oldest will give me just a chance I just want her to, like, talk to me so that I can say I'm sorry, so that I can say I love her. I love her so much. And I love my grandbaby, who I've never seen. And I wish and pray only good things for her in the future. I just want her to know I love her. And that I said it to her and nobody told her for me. Or she didn't read the things I've left her after I die, only to find out that I was so sorry. Anyway, I feel stupid for saying so much on a podcast. I try to read just the words that I wrote so many years ago, but this book, the All Apologies book, is meant to be just that. It's meant to be a book to say goodbye. It's it's meant to be a book to say I'm so sorry to everyone. And to please forgive me. Forgive me if you can. But it's okay if they don't. I get it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I get it. Maybe forgiveness is too much to ask. Okay, I'm gonna close this podcast and I will talk to you in the next one. Thank you for listening.